Hey guys, my name is Ethan. I'm 29 years old, and tonight I'm going to tell you a secret of mine before going to bed. I can still feel the cold sweat on the back of my neck whenever I think about it, like there's something just behind me breathing down my spine. So before you get too comfortable, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe, but only if you truly enjoy what I'm doing here. And don't forget to drop your location and your local time in the comments, because it makes me feel a little less alone talking into this darkness. Now turn off the lights, let your fan hum a gentle white noise, and let's begin tonight's journey together. I can feel my hands tremble as I start this confession, like they're trying to run away from what I'm about to say. I never thought I'd be the kind of man who'd invite evil right into my soul, but here I am. I let the devil in, and I did it with my eyes wide open. It started in a place where people don't usually expect to meet the devil, a church basement. Yeah, I know. Sounds backwards, right? That's what made it so perfect. There was this old, peeling room down there with a faint smell of wet concrete and mildew, the kind that clung to your skin. I used to go down there after evening service just to breathe, to be alone with God, or so I thought. But that night was different. I'd been arguing with my girlfriend for weeks. My boss was riding me like a horse on the edge of collapse, and the bills felt like they were breeding in the mail. I was hollow, angry, empty, and in that emptiness, I heard a voice. I'm not talking about a voice like you hear from a friend or from a phone call. This was inside me, vibrating in my bones. It told me it could fix everything, take the pain away. I know. You're probably thinking I was hallucinating or making it up, but I swear on every Bible in that church, I heard it clear as day. The voice felt like a balm, a warm touch on the rawest part of my heart. It promised me I could finally rest, that I could stop worrying, stop fighting. I laughed at it at first, but it was so patient, so gentle, almost comforting, like the way your mom's voice sounds when you're half asleep. It didn't rush me, it just waited, humming in my ribs, until I felt too weak to say no, and I didn't say no. That night, I knelt on the cracked linoleum floor and asked the devil to take my pain. I didn't even think about what else he might take. I remember how the air shifted. There was no sulfur, no cartoon flames, no horror movie jump scare. Just a deep, rolling cold, like the night itself was creeping inside my lungs. The candles in the far corner, the ones left behind from some youth group meeting, they flickered blue for a second. I swear they did. And when I stood up, I felt taller, stronger, like someone had peeled away the rotten pieces of me and left behind something hard and sharp. The next day, things really did get better, or so it seemed. My boss backed off. My girlfriend apologized. I even got a random check in the mail from an old job, like a refund I'd forgotten. It was everything I wanted, wrapped up in a neat little package. But there was a catch. There's always a catch. I started having these dreams, dark, twisted dreams. People screaming behind walls I couldn't see, clawing at the floors, voices begging me to help them. Every night, the same nightmares, getting clearer and clearer until I recognized some of the faces, people I loved. And every time I woke up, I felt a little more hollow. I tried praying, I really did. I tried reading my Bible, going to confession, even taking holy water from the little dish by the entrance. Nothing changed. The devil had moved in, and he wasn't paying rent. I feel like I'm talking too fast. Sorry. Let me slow down. There was a moment about a week after I made that deal when I looked at myself in the mirror and didn't recognize my own face. It was like someone else had moved behind my eyes. The smile was mine, but it was twisted, cruel, like a hungry wolf wearing my skin. I wish I could tell you I ran straight to the priest, fell on my knees, begged for deliverance, but I didn't. I was hooked, hooked on how easy everything had become, hooked on the relief. I know that makes me a coward, maybe worse, but you've never felt the peace of having no guilt. It was like being drugged. I could sleep, finally, after months of tossing and turning. That was how he kept me close. He stole the guilt, but left the sin. I'd wake up every morning with this dull ache in my chest, like something was missing. And by the time I noticed it, I was too far gone to crawl back to the light. Some nights, I'd hear the devil laughing in the silence of my bedroom. It was the kind of laugh that you feel more than hear, like your bones vibrating under the floorboards. And you know what? I'd laugh right along with him because he was right. The world was cruel, and he offered me a shortcut through it. I started doing things I never thought I'd do. Petty, stupid things at first, lying to my friends about where I'd been, stealing a few bucks out of the offering basket, skipping work to drink alone in my truck while the sun burned down on me. Each time, that voice was there, telling me it was fine, that I deserved it, that no one was watching. But someone was watching. I remember this one night. I was driving back from a bar, half drunk, head spinning, and I saw a kid standing on the sidewalk. Just a kid, couldn't have been more than 12 or 13, waiting for the crossing signal. The voice in my head whispered, "No one will know." It made my hands clench the steering wheel so hard my knuckles went white. I swear for half a second, I thought about flooring the gas and ending everything, ending myself, ending that kid, just because I could. That was the moment I realized how far I'd sunk. But I didn't do it. I slammed the brakes, pulled over, and puked right on the side of the road. My stomach felt like it was trying to climb up my throat, and the voice laughed. It laughed and laughed until I thought my ears would bleed. When I finally got home that night, I fell to my knees in front of the old wooden cross above my bed. I tried to pray, but the words felt foreign in my mouth, like they didn't belong to me anymore. I wanted to believe Jesus was still listening, but I couldn't feel him. All I felt was that cold echo where my soul used to be. It wasn't until I started seeing the shadows that I knew something had to change. They'd moved just out of the corner of my eye. Tall, thin shapes, like men made of smoke, slipping around doorways and standing over my bed at night. I couldn't hear them speak, but I could feel what they wanted. They were waiting. For what, I still don't know. I told myself maybe it was just stress, or the alcohol, or the guilt, but deep down I knew the truth. I'd let something in, and it wasn't just living rent-free in my heart anymore. It was growing, rooting itself into my bones. Sometimes I'd catch myself smiling for no reason. The kind of smile that doesn't reach your eyes. The kind of smile a shark has right before it bites down. And then came the night I tried to take it back. I went down to the basement again, the same cracked tiles, the same sour smell. I knelt on the floor just like before, but this time I was shaking so hard I could barely hold my hands together. I tried to say the Lord's Prayer, but every line twisted in my mouth like my tongue didn't want to move. Our Father, who art in heaven. The lights above me flickered. Hallowed be thy name. A cold wind slipped under the door, even though it was the middle of summer. Thy kingdom come. And then I heard him. That same patient voice, smooth as honey, dark as night. He said I couldn't just break the deal. There was no receipt to return what he'd taken. He said I was his now. I swear I felt something brush my face then. A hand, a wing. It was ice cold, tracing my jaw, and I flinched so hard I almost fell over. And then it was gone. I ran upstairs, breathing like I'd been drowning, my heart pounding so loud I thought it might burst. I don't even remember locking the door behind me. Since then, the shadows haven't left. They're closer now, sometimes standing right at the foot of my bed, studying me. And each night, the voice asks me to do worse things, darker things, and every time, it gets harder to say no. I don't know how much longer I can hold on. I can still see the look on my mother's face the last time I visited her. She hugged me, but she pulled back just a little too quickly, like she felt something under my skin that didn't belong, like she smelled the rot. And maybe she did. I didn't tell her. How could I? Hey, Mom, I accidentally invited the devil to live in my head. Can you pass the mashed potatoes? Yeah, no. I kept trying to act normal, go through the motions. I went to work, paid my bills, even tried to meet up with some old friends. But everything felt paper thin, like I was pretending to be me instead of actually living. And the voice, God, the voice, it never stopped. He would talk to me in the middle of conversations, drowning out other people's words until I couldn't focus. I'd be sitting at my desk, and suddenly I'd hear him asking me to hurt someone, just a little, just enough to taste it. One day I nearly did. I was in line at the grocery store, just trying to buy a frozen pizza and a bottle of Coke, when this guy in front of me started yelling at the cashier. Something about coupons not working. He was loud, obnoxious, and the voice told me to grab a knife and shut him up. I could see it in my head, clear as crystal, the way the blade would slide into his ribs, the way the blood would pool on the cheap tile floor. I nearly dropped my groceries, hands shaking, sweat pouring down my back like rain. That's when I realized I couldn't even trust myself anymore. So I started sleeping with the lights on. I left the TV running just to drown out the voice. I even moved a little nightstand cross closer to my pillow, like that could save me. It didn't. The nightmares got worse. They weren't just dreams, they were memories twisted into something monstrous. I'd see myself doing terrible things, hurting people I loved, destroying everything I cared about, and sometimes I'd wake up screaming, clutching the sheets so hard my nails tore through them. I wanted to go back to church. I really did. But every time I set foot through those doors, my skin burned like a sunburn from the inside out. I could barely look at the stained glass, and I know what that means. I know who owns me now. Some days I think about telling someone, a priest, a counselor, hell, even a stranger on the street. But then the voice reminds me of the deal, how he kept his promise. He took away my pain. That was all I asked. I never asked what he'd take in return. And now I don't even recognize the man in the mirror. There's something in my eyes that wasn't there before, something cold and slick, like oil on water. It watches me when I shave, when I brush my teeth, when I try to pray. It waits, and I'm afraid that one day I'll give in. There's one night I can't get out of my head, no matter how hard I try. It was storming outside, thunder shaking the windows, rain pounding like angry fists. I was alone in my apartment, sitting on the edge of my bed, trying to read the Bible. My hands were slick with sweat, pages wrinkling under my fingers. Every word looked like it was crawling across the paper, twisting itself into something unholy. I tried to say the words out loud, to speak them like a shield, but my throat locked up. That was when I felt him, stronger than ever. He was standing behind me. I didn't have to turn around to know. The air got heavy, so thick I could barely breathe. The lamp on my nightstand started to flicker, and the shadows in the corners of my room seemed to move, crawling closer. I heard him whisper, clear as a knife slicing through my thoughts. "You are mine now, Ethan," and I believed it. I broke down sobbing, right there on the bed, choking on snot and tears, my whole body shaking. I begged for Jesus to take me back, to forgive me, to save me. But it felt like praying through a locked door. No answer came. Just that quiet, patient voice telling me to stop crying, to accept what I'd become. I wish I could say I stood up, fought back, called a priest, but I didn't. I curled up under my blankets like a scared kid, rocking myself until my eyes finally closed. Since then, things have only gotten darker. I see shapes everywhere now, out in the street, in reflections, even in other people's faces. It's like he's using the world to watch me, making sure I don't step out of line. Sometimes I think about ending it, taking a handful of pills, or walking into traffic, anything to get away from this endless pull. But then the voice reminds me that it owns more than my soul. It owns everything I love too. If I go, it might go after them next. So I stay. I play along. I pretend to be normal, to smile and nod, to laugh at bad jokes, to show up at work and pay my taxes. But inside, I'm rotting. Every night before I try to sleep, I make the sign of the cross and ask God one last time, "Are you still listening?" And then I hear that laugh again, so close it feels like it's coming from inside my own chest. That's how I know the devil is still here, still waiting, and maybe deep down, a part of me doesn't want him to leave. Hey, if you're still awake, thanks for sticking with me. I'm not sure why I keep telling this story, but it feels like maybe if I say it out loud enough times, God will finally hear me, or maybe you will. Anyway, I wish I could tell you Act 1 was the worst of it, but it wasn't. Things started to change after that stormy night, slowly, almost gently, like the devil didn't want me to notice. I'd catch myself doing things I didn't even remember deciding to do, picking fights with strangers, stealing random stuff, things I didn't even need, like a lady's bracelet or a lighter from a gas station. I told myself it was stress or sleepwalking or just me being an idiot. But no matter how I explained it, deep down I knew it was him, flexing inside me, testing how far he could push. One morning, I woke up to find my hands covered in dirt. My fingernails were packed full of mud, and my clothes smelled like fresh earth. I had no clue how it happened. I tried to piece it together, but my memory was a smear, like wet ink on a cheap napkin. There were scratches on my forearms, deep ones, as if I'd clawed through the ground with my bare hands. I checked the backyard, just in case, and sure enough, there was a fresh hole behind the shed, wide and deep, but empty, like I'd been digging a grave for someone who hadn't arrived yet. I felt sick. I threw up right there in the grass, my head spinning, the taste of acid and fear burning my throat. Then, like clockwork, the voice slithered in. Soon. That's all it said. Soon. I tried going back to therapy, but I couldn't make it past the waiting room. Something about the place, the smell of coffee, the soft pastel artwork, the way everyone seemed so normal, made my skin crawl. I felt like a wolf among sheep, afraid I might snap at any moment. So I left. On the drive home, I caught my reflection in the rearview mirror. I wish I could say I saw myself, but I didn't. I saw something else, a stranger wearing my bones. His eyes were flat, bottomless, like two coins dropped down a well. I looked away so fast I nearly ran a red light. That night, I sat alone at the kitchen table trying to pray. The words wouldn't come. My tongue felt heavy, thick, like it was tied to a stone. I remember slamming my fists on the table so hard it rattled the dishes. Why me? I shouted. No answer, just silence. It was almost worse than the devil's voice, that perfect, bottomless silence. I started hearing things at work, too. Whispers in the break room, soft breathing behind the filing cabinets, a voice humming my name through the air vents. The lights would flicker whenever I stepped into a meeting. A coworker even told me I looked different, like I'd lost weight or changed my hair, but I hadn't. They could see something shifting in me, even if they didn't know what it was. Sometimes I'd feel this strange pull in my hands, like an itch under the skin, like I needed to do something. I'd sit there at my desk, fingers twitching, daydreaming about slamming them into someone's face just to hear the bones crack. I never actually did it, yet, but the daydreams kept getting stronger, more vivid, more satisfying. You'd think I'd be scared, and I was, but there was also a part of me, a sick, secret part that was excited, like I wanted to see what would happen if I just let go. That's the part that scares me the most, because it's not all him. Some of it is me. It's strange how quickly you can get used to sharing your mind with a monster. After a while, the fear turns into a kind of numbness, like your nerves have been burned out. I'd go whole days without really thinking about it, just letting the devil steer, letting him decide. And he didn't always want chaos. Sometimes he wanted me calm, obedient, smiling for the neighbors, making small talk, paying my bills, keeping everything looking normal. It was easier to hide that way. I became a puppet, and I didn't even notice the strings anymore. Then one night, something shifted. I was lying in bed, trying to listen to one of those guided sleep meditations on YouTube. You know, the ones with the soft voice telling you to breathe in, breathe out. For a moment, I felt almost peaceful, almost human. Then the voice cut through the headphones. "They're coming for you, Ethan." It wasn't the meditation narrator. It was him. My chest locked up. I ripped the earbuds out, heart pounding, scanning the room for something, anything. But there was nothing there except the faint glow of the streetlight through the blinds. "They're coming for you." I didn't sleep at all that night. The next morning, I tried to go to church. I thought maybe if I just sat there, surrounded by people praying, I might feel stronger. I made it to the parking lot, that's all. The second I stepped out of my car, my knees buckled. It was like someone was pressing an iron to my chest, branding me from the inside out. I couldn't breathe, couldn't move, couldn't even scream. I crawled back into the driver's seat, shaking so hard I thought my teeth might crack. That was when I realized I couldn't go back, not without help. A week later, I saw a flyer on a telephone pole, some kind of deliverance ministry. It sounded shady, like one of those backroom preachers on late night TV, but I was desperate. I ripped it down, folded it into my pocket, and dialed the number that night. The guy on the other end sounded normal enough. He told me to come by after hours, said he'd seen cases like mine before. That chilled me to the bone. Cases like mine? I showed up around 9 after everyone else had left the strip mall building. Inside, it smelled like cheap air freshener and stale coffee. The guy was older, probably 60, gray hair, blue shirt with a sweat stain down the middle. He didn't look holy, but he didn't look afraid either. He sat me down, didn't even ask for money, and told me to start talking. So I did. I told him everything about the night in the church basement, about the voice, about the nightmares and the dirt under my fingernails. I even told him about almost running that kid over. He didn't blink. He just nodded, like he'd heard it 100 times before. I slept on the floor that night, afraid to close my eyes. Every creak of the building felt like footsteps. Every gust of wind felt like a breath on my neck. And I realized, for the first time, that I might never be free. I had opened a door that could never be fully shut. When I finished, he leaned back, folded his hands, and sighed. "Son," he said, "if you let him in, you gotta kick him out the same way." I asked him what that meant, and he told me something I'll never forget. The devil doesn't break in, he waits for an invitation. It made me sick to hear it, because I knew he was right. I'd opened the door. He offered to help, but warned me it would hurt, that it could take days, even weeks, and that I might not survive it. A joke slipped out of me before I could stop it. "What if I don't survive?" I asked, trying to laugh. He looked me dead in the eyes. "Then at least you'll die free." I didn't sleep at all that night. The next day, I went back to the deliverance guy, even though my legs felt like they were made of concrete. Part of me wanted to drive anywhere else, a bar, a motel, even off a bridge. But somehow I made it there. He was waiting for me, same blue shirt, same tired eyes. He didn't waste time. Told me to sit in a metal folding chair in the middle of this cramped little back room. There was a crucifix on the wall, cheap plastic, but it seemed to shimmer in the weak light. He asked if I was ready. I told him I didn't know. He said, "That'll have to be enough." He started praying right away, loud and confident, like a man who's been in 100 bar fights and knows how to swing. I tried to repeat after him, but the words tasted like acid. My tongue kept tripping over Jesus, like it was a foreign name. I could feel him, the devil, rising up inside me like a boil about to burst. My skin burned. I was sweating so hard my clothes stuck to me, and my heart slammed in my ribs so loud I couldn't hear half of what the man was saying. The first time he shouted, "In the name of Jesus Christ," I felt something in me rip. It was like claws scraping the inside of my skull, trying to hold on. I screamed. I didn't even recognize my own voice. It sounded animal, something wild and furious. The deliverance guy didn't flinch. He just kept praying louder and louder, drowning me out. And then I heard the devil, not the soft, patient whisper I'd gotten used to, but a roar so deep it rattled my bones. Mine. It was all he said, over and over, like a war drum beating in my head. I don't know how long it lasted. Minutes? Hours? It felt like a lifetime, like I was being torn in half. My muscles seized up so bad I nearly bit through my tongue. But somewhere, buried under all that pain, was a tiny spark, a little light, like a pilot flame that never goes out. And for the first time in months, I felt Jesus. Just a whisper, a warmth, but it was enough. I grabbed onto it with everything I had left. I don't remember falling out of the chair, but I remember hitting the floor, hard, cheek pressed against the dirty linoleum, drool leaking out of my mouth. It was quiet. No voice, no laughter, just me, breathing. The deliverance guy leaned over me, wiped the spit off my chin, and helped me sit up. His hands were shaking, almost as bad as mine. He told me not to get cocky, that the devil doesn't quit easy, and he'd be back, pounding at the door. I nodded, even though I could barely hold my head up. When I got home that night, I felt empty. Not the scary kind of empty I'd been living with, but clean, like a wound after it's been washed. I slept for 12 hours straight. No nightmares, no shadows, just the steady hum of my fan and the soft rise and fall of my breath. I wish I could say that was the end of it, but you know it never is. The first few days after the deliverance felt like living in a brand new world. Food tasted better, colors looked sharper. I even laughed at a stupid sitcom on TV, something I hadn't done in months. It was like the air itself had changed, but the fear never fully went away. I kept waiting for the other shoe to drop, for that voice to slip back in through some crack I'd missed. I double checked my locks every night, crossed myself before bed, left a Bible on the nightstand like a loaded gun. Maybe it sounds silly. Maybe it was silly. But you can't live that close to evil and walk away without a limp. A week later, I got a text from an unknown number. Just one word. Soon. My heart nearly stopped. I threw the phone across the room, watched it bounce off the wall and hit the floor. My hands were shaking so badly, I couldn't even pick it up right away. It was him. I knew it was him. The devil doesn't forgive. He doesn't forget. I tried to go about my life anyway. Went back to work, kept my head down, tried to look normal, but every day felt like walking on a frozen lake, listening for cracks. I'd be driving and see a shadow in my rear view. I'd feel something brush the back of my neck while I waited in line. I'd hear a voice humming my name in the shower drain. They were all reminders. I hadn't beaten him. I'd only bought time. One night I was sitting on my couch, lights off, just letting the static of the TV fill the silence. My mind was wandering, half asleep, when I felt a familiar chill crawl up my spine. I didn't even have to turn around. He was there, closer than ever. I could feel him inside my heartbeat, in the way my lungs pulled air, in the tiny flex of my tendons. You belong to me. My teeth started chattering, even though the room was warm. I clutched the cross around my neck so hard the edges dug into my skin. I tried to pray, but no words came. Then the TV went black. I stared at the blank screen, breathing like I'd just run a marathon, and I saw my own reflection there, but it wasn't just me. Behind my eyes, there was something else, something smiling, wide and cruel. I screamed, threw the remote straight through the TV. The glass shattered, sparks flying, the room plunging into silence. For a moment, I thought I'd finally lost my mind, but the reflection was gone. Hey, if you're still here, still listening to this, I don't even know how to thank you. It's strange talking to the darkness like this, but somehow I feel like you're with me, like someone out there is sharing this burden. Tonight, I need to tell you how it all came to a head. It had been maybe a month since I'd smashed the TV, since I'd tried to rip his voice out of my head. I was living in a kind of half silence. The devil didn't talk as much, but he was still there, breathing with me, dreaming with me, humming in the pauses. And then the dreams started again. Worse than before. I'd wake up covered in sweat, my heart hammering like a war drum, convinced I'd done something terrible in my sleep. Some mornings, I found scratches down my arms, too clean, too even to be random, like someone, or something, was marking me. The worst part was, I didn't feel surprised, almost like I'd been expecting it. One night I had a dream, or maybe it wasn't a dream. I was standing in that same church basement, the one where this all began, except it looked wrong. The walls were slick with something black and shiny, like oil. The cross was upside down, nailed to a rotten beam. He was there, waiting for me. I could see him clearly this time. Not a red monster, not horns and pitchforks. No, he looked like me. Same face, same eyes, same crooked smile. But there was something dead behind his gaze, like a wolf wearing a human mask. He told me it was time, that I couldn't run anymore, that I'd promised him. I tried to argue, tried to wake myself up, but he was in my head, crawling around like a centipede under my skull. He showed me flashes, images of people I knew, my mother, my old girlfriend, even the deliverance guy. Their faces twisted in pain, mouths wide, screaming, and me standing over them with blood on my hands. He promised I could have peace if I just accepted it, that all this fighting was pointless, that surrender was the only way out. When I woke up, I was crying so hard I couldn't breathe. I felt like a child again, lost and terrified, The sun was coming up, pale and thin through my curtains, but it didn't comfort me at all. I knew I had to make a choice, either stand and fight, no matter how hopeless it felt, or give in and let him finish what he started. I don't know if you've ever stood on the edge of a cliff, toes hanging over, wondering if the drop might feel like flying. That was where I was, spiritually, mentally, a single step from oblivion. I kept thinking about the hole I'd dug behind the shed, about the kid on the sidewalk, about every dark urge I'd almost followed through on. I kept wondering, was that really me, or was it him? And maybe the scariest answer was that it didn't matter, because the line between us was gone. That night, I made a decision. I was going back to the basement, not to pray, not to beg, but to face him. I waited until after midnight, when the world felt thin and brittle. I slipped out of bed, barely breathing, trying not to wake the shadows that had gotten so used to watching me. The church was locked, of course, but I still had a spare key from when I used to help clean up after services. I stood outside for a long time, my hand on the doorknob, shaking so hard I could hear the keys rattling against each other. Part of me screamed to run, but I went in anyway. The air inside was stale, heavy, like a closed up tomb. The pews loomed out of the darkness, lined up like silent witnesses. I made my way down to the basement, each step creaking, old wood protesting under my weight. When I reached the bottom, it was just like in my dream. Same cracked tiles, same moldy walls. Only now it felt even colder. I stood in the center of the floor and took a breath so deep it burned. "All right," I said, my voice shaking. "I'm here. Come on, then." Nothing. For a second, I almost laughed, like maybe it was all in my head after all, just stress and nightmares and guilt. Then the lights blew out. I heard him before I saw him. That same voice, smooth as sin, echoing around the basement like it was bouncing off my ribs. "Welcome back, Ethan." The shadows rippled, gathering into a shape, my shape, same face, same clothes, same scars. Only his eyes were dead, flat, empty. He stepped closer, no sound, no breath, and smiled. "You thought you could leave me?" I swallowed, tried to keep my legs steady. "I won't let you win," I told him. He laughed, soft and cruel. "I already have." I felt something clamp around my heart, like a fist made of ice, squeezing until I thought I'd black out. My knees buckled, and I fell to the floor, hands scraping against the dirty linoleum. He crouched in front of me, face inches from mine, those dead eyes staring straight through me. "There is no you without me," he whispered. I wanted to fight. I really did. But my body wouldn't move. My mind felt like it was drowning. He reached out, touched my cheek with fingers that felt like knives. "Let me back in," he breathed. For a second, a horrible, traitorous second, I wanted to say yes, because he was right. All the pain, all the fear, all the guilt would vanish if I just gave up. I could rest. But then I remembered something. My mom's hug, the way she used to smell like coffee and soap. My old girlfriend's laugh, bright and sharp, like sunlight in winter. The way it felt to believe, even once, that God might still love me. And I said no. It didn't come out loud. It was a whisper, but it was mine. No. He roared, a sound so deep it rattled the walls, made the light bulbs burst in their sockets. The air felt like it was trying to crush me, every molecule screaming. But I held on. I gripped that tiny spark of light, buried deep inside, and I refused to let go. He tried to drown me in that darkness, tried to smother the last of me under a wave of cold and hate. I could feel him clawing at my mind, tearing through every weakness, every shame, every broken piece of me. But I wouldn't let him. I remembered the deliverance man's words. The devil doesn't break in, he waits for an invitation. And I'd already told him no. I shut my eyes and forced the only prayer I could remember through gritted teeth. Jesus, help me. It burned. God, it burned like acid in my throat, but I kept going. Jesus, help me. He screamed, the devil, right inside my skull, a howl so loud it made my ears ring. I felt something rip again, deeper than before, like a chain snapping. And in that moment, I saw him, truly saw him, not wearing my face anymore, but something ancient and hateful, a wound that could never heal. He reached for me, claws like obsidian, eyes hollow as a grave. You are mine. I opened my mouth one last time. No. There was a flash, bright, blinding like 1,000 suns, and then silence. Total, perfect silence. I was on the ground, gasping, my hands scraped raw, my knees bruised from the floor. The basement felt empty, the air still, heavy with dust, but nothing else. He was gone. I don't know how long I lay there, staring at the cracked ceiling. Minutes, maybe hours. The quiet felt alien, too big, too empty. But it was mine. I pulled myself to my feet, legs shaking like a newborn deer, and stumbled upstairs. The sanctuary was dark, but peaceful. I sat in the front pew, breathing slow, steady, trying to feel human again. I whispered, "Thank you," over and over, until my voice cracked. Thank you. The next days were different. I kept waiting to hear him, to feel that cold whisper in the back of my mind, but there was nothing. I was alone in my head for the first time in so long I barely recognized the quiet. I'd catch myself smiling, randomly, stupidly, because the silence was so precious. I know he's still out there. I know the devil doesn't forget. And maybe someday he'll come knocking again, asking me to open the door. But this time, I'll remember what it felt like to win. I'll remember that even a tiny spark of faith can burn him away. And I'll remember how to say no. Now, before you drift off, I want you to close your eyes. Slow your breathing, nice and easy, like the tide coming in and out. Let the story settle. Let the shadows fade into the background. Feel the weight of your body sinking into your bed, the mattress holding you steady, keeping you safe. The darkness in your room is just darkness, nothing more. There are no monsters waiting for you there, No voices whispering in the walls, only the quiet. Let that quiet soothe you. Let it fill in all the spaces where fear used to live. If you feel a chill, know it's just the night air brushing past you. If you hear a creak, know it's only the house settling, resting like you are. Remind yourself that you are here, in this moment, breathing and whole, that no matter what nightmares may come, you can open your eyes and find the light again. Feel your heartbeat slow, steady, calm. If you still feel afraid, talk to God in your own way. No fancy words, just honesty. Let Him hold that fear for you while you sleep. Imagine a warm light at the center of your chest, soft and steady, keeping you grounded. Let that light grow with every breath, pushing away the shadows. You are not alone. I'm right here, and so are countless others who understand. Sleep will come soon, and when it does, let it carry you somewhere gentle, somewhere safe. Breathe in, breathe out. What would you do if you were me? Good night, and keep my secret.